Now we ask that you please join us in a moment of silence to remember our friend, student, and daughter.
Family, friends, and school administrators were present to honor Wyatt and remember her as a beloved 8th grade student.
And welcome back to another episode of the Coffee with Crime podcast. I'm Brittany, and for today's episode, I'm going to be going over the story of Aubreigh Wyatt. So you may have heard of this story because it's been all over social media, especially TikTok, but even more recently, I have been seeing her story in the headline news. So it is the devastating story of a 13-year-old girl from Ocean Springs, Mississippi, who took her own life on September 4th, 2023. I debated about talking about this story because it is so heartbreaking to think of, such a young baby really feeling like she had no other choice but to take her own life. But I do believe that Aubreigh's story is an important one to share with a very necessary message, and so I am going to talk about it with you guys today. So, like I said, Aubreigh was only 13 years old when she made that final decision to take her own life, and she was just starting 8th grade at the time and was attending Ocean Springs Middle School. In the wake of Aubreigh's death, her mom, Heather Wyatt, started posting on TikTok to share not only Aubreigh's story, but also to share her own personal journey with grief.
Please, no. No. Oh my God!
So this was a video that Heather took when she was cleaning out Aubreigh's room and inadvertently found goodbye letters from Aubreigh that she had left behind. And this video absolutely shook me to my core because Heather's scream, I know all too well. It is the scream of a grieving mother. One of my vivid memories I have from working as an ER nurse was the scream of a mother who walked into the trauma bay to find her very young daughter had passed away from an overdose. It was a scream unlike any other sound I've ever heard. The sound of grief is definitely unique, and when you hear it, you do not forget it. And this is what I hear in the voice of Heather, and it's absolutely gut-wrenching. So Heather has said that she shares her journey of losing her daughter in hopes to spread awareness around teens and young people that self-unalive. I can't use the other term due to YouTube's policies, but you understand what I'm saying. And also to encourage others to stay with the faith that, things do get better in the future. And then finally, to have some accountability for the death of her 13-year-old daughter. So you see, Aubreigh, she endured years of bullying, allegedly by a group of specifically 4 girls within the same school that Aubreigh attended. And Heather, Aubreigh's mom, believes that it was this incessant bullying that ultimately drove Aubreigh to take her own life. So Heather, she was an elementary teacher in the same school district, and she said that she made multiple attempts to contact Aubreigh's school and address her concerns about the bullying, but that nothing was ever done to actually stop it from occurring. Various texts were shared on social media between Aubreigh and her group of bullies, allowing us just to see, how much of a daily battle this was for Aubreigh. So in this first text message here, Aubreigh says, "Keep my name out of your mouth," which the girl responds, "I'm good, that's embarrassing for you," a laughing emoji. Aubreigh says, "You have no room to talk," in which case the girl responds, "I'll talk about you all I want, you ain't babe." In the second message here, it starts out with, "Parker, I do talk crap about you." Aubreigh says, "I know you do. You talk crap about everyone." Parker says, "Yeah, and Aubreigh says, "You don't know how to treat anyone." Parker says, "Yes, I can." Then this is a text message between Aubreigh and her mom. It starts out, you can't really see it because this was taken from a TikTok, but it says, "Please check me out today. It's so bad." And then Heather says, "What's going on? I can't leave right now." Aubreigh says, "Everything, please, please." Like literally, Molly is so bad and mean that I was super upset, and Mrs. Elaine was like, "What's going on?" And I said, Molly and just today is bad. And she said, I don't even know why you are friends with Molly. She is so mean. You shouldn't be. And today is horrible. Like, please, I'll do anything. Maybe at 1, could you? And so this just kind of shows how uncomfortable Aubreigh was with being in the school. And again, how it was just like a daily occurrence that she was experiencing bullying to the point where she was basically begging her mom to check her out. There was also a time when Aubreigh was slapped by one of the 4 girls who bullied her. And this is a picture that Aubreigh sent home to her mother. And you can kind of see that her face, her cheek there is red. This is where she was allegedly slapped by Molly, and this is the text message between Aubreigh and her mom. So Aubreigh says, Molly slapped me across the face. Heather says, on purpose or accident. Aubreigh says, purpose. Her mom says, go tell the teacher immediately, now. And Aubreigh says that she's in the counselor's office and that they're getting her stuff. And Heather says, well, what's going to happen to her? Why did she do it? And Aubreigh said, no idea. She did it because I said I hate someone as a joke. So this was on March 21st, 2023. So that was about 6 months before Aubreigh took her own life. And still, even though she was experiencing physical abuse as well, it seems like nothing was really done to address this constant torment. And then on top of all of this, it is also said that Aubreigh was SA'd by a boy on school grounds and that she was bullied and harassed regarding this as well. Heather actually says that she went to the school regarding the SA, and here, I'll have you listen to what she says, and then we'll talk about it.
When Aubreigh was in 7th grade, at the end of 7th grade, she was SA'd by a student on school grounds. And yes, I emailed. Yes, I filed a report. Yes, I did all the things. And the audacity of an assistant principal to call my child in after I told him not to question my child who had just been violated and have to answer to a man. He did it anyway. Whole different story. Anyway, so we were ready to move forward, and then at some point my child was so intimidated, and he essentially told us that we were going to have to go in front of the whole school board. Aubreigh was going to have to retell her story tons and tons and tons of times. Mind you, this is a 12-year-old, and she was so intimidated and scared, she begged me to stop because she was so like being bullied at school now, because people had things up that were like Team Aubreigh, Team this, like who do you believe? It was absolutely disgusting. And did the school do anything? No. Then, because of this, she started getting called inappropriate, disgusting, vile names because a boy did what he did. And his parents had the audacity to defend him. Whatever, I don't care on that part. So we were essentially bullied into, and I'm in the district working, so I'm scared for my job. My child's scared for her reputation.
So according to Heather, she did go to Aubreigh's school and inform them that the SA happened. However, she did ask the male principal not to pull Aubreigh aside for questioning, but according to Heather, he did it anyways. And I think it's clear to see why Aubreigh would feel uncomfortable in this situation. She is a young girl, scared of obviously being bullied or judged any further. She's concerned about her reputation, and I'm sure untrusting of male figures at this point. And so for him to question Aubreigh, especially when her mother specifically asked him not to, it's totally out of line. Now, I'm not sure if Heather was actually present for the questioning or not. By the way that Heather talks about it, it seems like Heather was not there when the principal questioned Aubreigh regarding the alleged SA, in which case I would find this extremely inappropriate and believe that this should never be done. Aubreigh was a minor, and this was obviously a very sensitive topic. And if this was going to be discussed, I believe that the mom should have been present. And though Heather never named the 4 girls or the boy, the internet did what the internet does and identified these 4 girls that allegedly bullied and harassed Aubreigh, and also identified the boy who allegedly SA'd Aubreigh. So they were all publicly named. And then from there, people began sharing their pictures, their home addresses, and making, very serious and personal threats towards them. And mind you, again, these are minors, and though I do not at all condone bullying, I do think that there should be some safety measures in place to protect them. But regardless, once the information got out there, the internet ran with it, and they were completely doxxed on the internet. And so because of this, the parents of the 4 girls actually filed a lawsuit against Heather in April for slander, defamation, and negligence. And the parents of the alleged 4 bullies actually outright denied that the girls bullied Aubreigh. Now, as of my recording this lawsuit has actually been dropped. But also because of this lawsuit, Heather was temporarily banned from social media, and because she was silenced by the courts, outrage sparked across TikTok, with tons of influencers sharing Aubreigh's story and demanding that Heather be given her voice back. Now, as of July 19th, Heather's social media accounts have been restored. They do have some restrictions in place. She can't talk about, the bullying or any of the alleged bullies. Although, to clarify again, she never actually outright named them on her social media accounts. Now, during this time where Heather was banned from social media, the people of the internet, like I said, continued to just blast social media with Aubreigh's story, and they also plastered the face of Monty Noblet all over the web. So Monty is the father of the alleged, basically ringleader bully of the group of girls that were bullying Aubreigh, and also he is the assistant superintendent of a neighboring school district that Aubreigh and her bullies attended. And so people began to wonder if it was good old, nepotism that contributed to the lack of accountability and consequences for the constant bullying that Aubreigh endured. Now, I did see a lot of people saying that Monty was the superintendent of the same school district that the girls attend, but that, from what I have found, is inaccurate. After doing my own research, I did confirm that Monty is actually the assistant superintendent of Jackson County School District. So this is about 20 minutes from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. So still very close, but not the same district as has been spread all over the internet. Regardless, I do believe that even working in a nearby school district, that Monty could have had some pull in, possibly reducing any kind of consequences for at least his daughter. I would hope that there are some checks and balances in place, that if she was so blatantly harassing and bullying of Aubreigh, that somebody would have stepped in to do something. But from what we've heard from Heather, it does seem like nothing was really done. And then one of probably the more disturbing details of this story is that the 4 girls allegedly continued to bully Aubreigh even after she took her own life.
Within 2 days, it was maybe like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. We were not sleeping yet. And Taylor receives a screenshot of what these 4 girls are sending around. So not only did they just bully her in life, they couldn't even let her rest in peace. They couldn't even let her just be done. They couldn't stop. I'm going to show you the picture. And it's a trigger warning. This is what they posted on their Snapchats. They have no remorse. They have no guilt. They don't care. And to answer some of the questions, no, not a single one of them have reached out to apologize. Not a single one of their families have reached out to apologize. All they have done is come up with excuses.
So this is absolutely horrendous, and these girls should absolutely be ashamed of themselves, and their parents should be ashamed as well. I cannot fathom what I would do or how I would feel if I found out that my own children behaved in such a way. You know the saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. This is obviously incredibly false. In fact, I feel that words can hurt sometimes even more than physical pain. I absolutely hate bullying. And as a mother to 3 young children, I make it a point to talk with my kids all the time about bullying. I know that realistically we cannot stop our children from doing wrong all the time, but I am a firm believer that parents can have a huge impact on decreasing bullying. So research has shown that self-unaliving ideation, so this means, thinking about unaliving, occurs twice as often in adolescent girls than it does in adolescent boys. And multiple studies indicate that the risk of self-unaliving behavior is increased 3 to 6 times in youth that are involved in bullying compared to those that are not involved in bullying. And so we must be talking to our kids about this. We need to be asking questions, inquiring if they are being bullied or if they are treating people with kindness, if they are including others, if they see other students being bullied, and what they do if they themselves are being bullied or if they see someone else being bullied. We should be talking to our children daily regarding this. And specifically, if they are on social media, especially those younger children like in middle school, I believe that they need to be heavily monitored. We need to be making sure that the content that they are viewing is appropriate for their age, and we need to be ensuring that cyberbullying is not occurring, because social media has added this whole new element to the possibilities with bullying. So research estimates that among adolescents, the lifetime prevalence of cyberbullying ranges from 10 up to 40%. And it's actually believed that cyberbullying can be more harmful than just like traditional face-to-face bullying. And this is because cyberbullying can occur anytime, any place, and it can even occur in a person's, safe space, such as their home. Also, cyberbullying allows for a potentially larger audience to view the bullying. So this can increase the likelihood of embarrassment, and the bullying can be viewed or relived multiple times because we know the internet is forever and things can be saved and shared online. And so because of these reasons, cyberbullying has been associated with an increased self-unaliving behavior. And so it's important that we talk about this with our children and that schools are also talking about it with their students. All parties should be talking with children and are responsible in teaching our youth about bullying. Again, I believe personally that it does start at home, and it is first our job as parents to work diligently to stop bullying behaviors, to be talking to our children, and ultimately helping to protect the vulnerable youth. I thought it would be interesting and helpful to end today's video with a discussion with my husband. As some of you may know, my husband is a teacher and he specializes in emotional impairments, and so he definitely does have some useful insight to bring to this conversation. He's not usually a camera kind of guy, but this is also a message he feels passionate about as well. And so I would like to bring my husband, Jordan, on to end this podcast. All right, welcome. Would you like to first introduce yourself to the people listening and let us know your experience and your credentials?
Hi, I am Brittany's husband. My name is Jordan, and I have been a teacher for the past 10 years. I've worked in schools. I've officially had my own classroom for the past 8 years. Before that, I volunteered over 200 hours in a center-based program, which is a countywide program that is for students who have significant emotional needs. My specialty is emotional needs. And so that's kind of why I'm here to talk about the topic today. I work in an elementary school currently, but I do have some experience just throughout the school system. So I hopefully can offer some expertise.
Well, thank you for being a good sport and joining. So while I was researching about Aubreigh's story and, of course, bullying, I know you know a little bit of the story, I found myself asking a lot of questions. And so I was hoping that, like you said, that maybe you would give us some helpful answers, some insight, not only obviously for myself, but for our listeners. And so I have some questions for you, and I'm just interested for you to share with us your opinions, answer honestly the best that you can. If there's something that you don't feel like you can answer, let me know and we will move on. Deal?
Sounds like a good idea.
All right, so in your experience, if a student of yours or within the school that you are helping is bullying other students, how do you personally handle this? And if a student is being bullied, what do you do in this situation? So one, if they are bullying, and then the other is if they're being bullied. What do you do?
Initially, I'll try to talk to both students. I will try and empower the student who's being bullied, saying things like, hey, is everything all right? Do you need me to reach out to someone for you? I'm here for you. Is there anything that you need? Try to be a support person for that student, just so they know there's adults in their corner who are looking out for them. And on the flip side, for the student who's doing the bullying, we try and make them, one, aware that people are aware of their behavior, and so that they can kind of know that people are watching, but also try to make it a lesson the first time. Again, we're elementary school teachers here. We're talking about kids 5 through 11
right.
At the oldest, so they're young. So teaching is our first priority. So we would use that opportunity to try and talk about how would you feel if someone treated you like that, to try and teach some empathy and putting yourself in someone else's shoes to really impact that student. Now, there are other degrees, as I know we've discussed. If a student is really being harmed emotionally or physically, there are consequences for students who are doing the bullying that have gone as far as suspension for more than a day in my school, and different incidents where students have been separated on the playground, either for the rest of the school year or an extended amount of time, to give the student who's being bullied a safe space.
So I do know your experience obviously is a little bit different than this one because, like you said, you work with students in elementary school. Do you have any insight, I guess, with like students that would be in middle school? And do you think it varies, or do you think it usually starts out with kind of, warning and a lesson, and then if they repeat, then the consequences like naturally escalate?
I do think that probably in most cases there is that warning. I think most people, even with middle schoolers, again, you're still talking very young tweens and teens. You're not talking adults yet. Their brains aren't fully developed, and our expectations of them, while high, we still understand their children. So I'm sure that the main goal of most people is to teach initially.
Obviously, it depends on, like you said, the severity.
Depends on the severity and what is said in the incident. Again, things vary. If you're being very personal, or if it seems more like you were silly and just crossed the line.
Sure.
All those things I think matter. Again, with elementary school, we aren't dealing with the social media or technology aspect,
which is
much
obviously a huge component in this case.
Of this case, right. A lot of our students, if they have cell phones, it comes in 4th or 5th grade, and not everyone has them. So
I'm terrified of cell phones. Excuse me.
I read a quote the other day that when you give your child a cell phone is when their youth ends. So I think that's an impactful quote. I think that the access to technology for students at those older ages is very difficult because
we really didn't have that.
Right.
Like you're constantly comparing on social media, and everything is like they say, like a highlight reel on social media.
Right.
Again,
comparison
cyberbullying
is the thief of joy. I mean, anytime you compare yourself to others, especially their highlight reel, it's gonna feel like not every day is great. But even we talk about, adults don't post their okay days and their bad days on social media. People post the good things and what they want to share with people.
Yeah,
So that's
makes
really
sense.
difficult to maybe a younger person or an undeveloped brain. Also, we talked about, I know the two of us, that when people are behind a screen, they're willing to say a lot of things they wouldn't say eye to eye. I think that's really important too, especially
Yes.
for younger people.
The keyboard,
the keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
People are
People
willing.
will say horrible things.
It's like people behind the wheel of their car.
Yes.
They're willing to scream at you.
Dehumanizes people.
Yes, very dehumanizing. And I think that is a huge aspect of social media that maybe we need to continue to educate everyone on, including the youth. But I think you see adults every day online saying things they wouldn't say to people in person. So I think that's a really important point to be made.
I know we got off on a little bit of a tangent, but just to take it back to the question really quick, how quickly do you involve the students' parents? Like, is it, do you always notify the parents, or is it something that, like based on severity or like repetition?
Severity, I think, is a huge thing. I mean,
Yeah.
if you just hear something said in a cafeteria or in passing and you talk to kids, you can't call parents every time we talk to kids. I work in a school with 400 students, and I have touch points with probably 200 students a day, and some of them are positive, and some of them are redirections, and some are negative, and I don't have the power to even reach out to all those parents. So I think often parents aren't involved until the severity is at a point where there is some sort of harm coming about.
And not just physical harm you're talking about too.
Yes, emotional harm. I mean, if you're making other students cry on a daily basis, those other students' parents are going to be involved as well as yours.
Yeah.
Also, at our school, things have escalated to a point where we have 3 liaison police officers that are employed through our school district and they have come in and spoke to kids about the severity of their behavior or a certain action or a certain thing the student has said that is so severe that law enforcement in their future may have to be involved in something like that.
Scared Straight?
Yeah, it's not quite like that. The police officers come in and are very friendly, and it's more of an education process. It is not a Scared Straight, but it is kind of like, hey, this is serious because now someone is here from the next step, and it's not necessarily to scare them straight, but more educate them on the severity of their behavior.
Okay, so kind of building off of this, my next question for you is, in your school, how do you educate students on bullying? And do you think that your school is doing enough? And then also, what do you think other schools could do to help prevent bullying?
So I think one of our big things that I think a lot of schools I've seen, I know our children's school, I know a lot of other schools, they try and focus on rewarding the positive and highlighting the good behavior in students. I know at our school we talk a lot about empathy and perseverance and mindfulness and acceptance and different things that we use to empower students to not bully others and be more accepting. I think inclusion is huge in society right now. You're talking about it being inclusive of special ed, inclusive of different races, inclusive of different genders and different people. I think the world has become more inclusive and tries to be more understanding.
Do you actually see in your practice that it is more inclusive, or do you think that we're just more aware? But like, do you still see the same bullying? Because I do think that when I was younger, I saw bullying all the time. Like, is it actually better?
I think with our children's generation, there is more acceptance, at least through elementary school. Again,
like, definitely more awareness.
I have a hard time speaking to middle school because I visit the middle school rarely. I do visit there at times, but the kids are still more grown up there. They care more about social status there. There is definitely more of a social hierarchy and things. I know in elementary school there is a ton of acceptance preached, and kids are so much more involved with just different types of kids that I think there is more acceptance. There are still students who need to be taught. I think it's a lesson you learn not only at school but from your home, and usually I find that students who are struggling to be kind to everyone have their own story and a reason why they're struggling with kindness. Usually something their history has happened to them as well. Not that that makes it right, but I think everyone usually has a story.
Yeah, like you said, like not that it makes it okay, but usually you do find out that there is something going on at home. And that's kind of the next question I wrote down here was, what do you believe parents or guardians could be doing outside of school to help prevent bullying? Because I know that this is huge. I know it's not all on the schools, and it can be easy to point fingers when things go wrong. And I'm not even talking about the case in this situation, just in general. I know that we talk to our kids all the time about bullying, and we make a point. Do you think it starts in the home, or what do you think about what parents need to be doing, or guardians or whatever, outside of school?
I think that children base their values off their parents, especially when they're young. I think they learn things at school, but I think if you're constantly indoctrinated in something at home or taught something at home, it's more impactful, especially if it's matching or similar to what your school is teaching you. I think we do find cases where parents aren't always super involved with their kids or educating their kids. I think the more involved you are with your child, the more likely you are to have those conversations about what's right and what's wrong in society. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is being involved with your child and really being there for them to listen and hear about their lives, hear about kids at school, hear about what they're involved with when you're not there. I think that's hard the older they get. I know kids want their independence, and so that might be also establishing rules of how technology is used, maybe when you have times with no technology. Like I know even for us at dinner, we turn the TV off. We don't have any devices. Like maybe for those older kids, it's important to have those times where you're technology free and kind of being the example for that, and then having the discussions, because I do think people get too wrapped up in the rat race of life and sometimes miss out on important conversations they could be having with their children.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I definitely think that all parties really do play a role and need to be involved. But, and this is kind of off the cuff, but like personally, because obviously we have kids, we have 3 young kids. What would you do? Or what would we do? I mean, I guess I know what I would do. But like if we found out that like one of our children were like relentlessly being bullied, and because we know that this started for her in 5th grade, and she took her life when she was in 8th grade. So this was 3 years from the same group of people. I mean, how far would you go if this was one of our children? Like personally,
I think
as a parent.
Initially I'd take steps similar to the parent and trying to involve the school, and I'd also try and empower my student to...
Like, do you call the teacher first, or do you call or email? Like, what is the right, protocol?
A surface starting thing would be to, especially if they're in elementary schoolers, emailing the teacher is a great start. And the teacher may be able to provide more insight. The teacher may know more about the situation than even your child is able to express to you, because they're there living it every day. Teachers also often have a unique perspective because they maybe do see the behavior and they may be addressing it. Just like we expect teachers to preserve our children's privacy, every child's privacy is preserved. So often if a parent emails about a child, that child could already be
not their child, you mean another child.
Another child.
Okay.
Let's say they're saying my child's being bullied by X, Y, and Z. Well, often X, Y, and Z are already receiving consequences, but due to the privacy of them, their privacy, we cannot disclose their consequence. Often we'll respond with, the student has received a consequence.
And they probably want to know. I mean, I'm just
Parents
thinking.
often want to know. They want to know, is the student suspended? Is he going to change classes? What is the consequence? And
so when do you go to the principal? Or when do you go up the ladder? Like if things aren't changing?
Well, yeah, if you emailed the teacher once or twice and you feel there's been no impact and your student's still coming home, or your child with the same feelings regarding the incidents, or if the incidents are still occurring, then definitely I would continue to go up the ladder. I think then contacting the principal next. If email wasn't being effective by my first email to the principal, I'd ask for an in-person meeting. I think that's very impactful to meet in person with the teacher.
Would you go to the
principal.
parents? Like, because I feel like that's what I'd be like. I mean, but I feel like maybe, I don't know if I'd be as level-headed as you, because you have experience working within the school system. Like, I almost be like, okay, I give you one chance to make things right, or I'm knocking on the parent's door. Like, is that appropriate?
Yeah, but I think that harkens back to not everyone raises their children the same. Not everyone has the same household. You can't just go knock on someone's door. They may say, yep, I want my student to be powerful and I want them to use
There are adult bullies. I mean,
there's people out there who maybe aren't as sympathetic, and so I caution going to the parent. I do think that if you know the parent or you have previous encounters with the parents, I know a lot of us attend events at our children's school and you may just be an acquaintance with them, but if you're comfortable speaking to the parent, I think that's something that can be impactful as parent-to-parent discussions, and then you can even have a discussion where the children are involved and the parents, and I think that can really be impactful. That's something we do at school a lot, is try and bring students in to talk with the person who is affected and kind of let them say
like the kid and the bully.
Yes, and let the kid express how they've been made to feel in a safe environment protected by adults.
I feel like that's hard though too, because I feel like from just thinking back when I was a kid, you know, you don't want to seem like uncool, or maybe they're not going to share everything, especially if they're like in front of their bully. You know what I mean? Like, just because you're trying to pretend like things maybe aren't as bad as they are.
Right. So that's something we've practiced with them beforehand. If we're going to do that, it's something we've talked through with them.
Well, like in healthcare, we'll interview the patient a lot of times, you know, alone and with a guardian. So like I feel like probably the same thing there too, like maybe by themselves and with the other kid or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, so I think it was helpful talking to you. I think it's interesting to know, like from the educator standpoint, like what the right thing to do is from a parent if they have a child that's being bullied. So basically we start with we're always should be talking to our kids, obviously. I think we agree on that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's step one, is being involved with your kid's life.
Every day, like checking in, especially always, but then an extra step would be if they're on any kind of social media. Personally, I think that you need to be extremely involved in making sure that it's appropriate, that there's no cyberbullying happening, and just, you know, really being involved, because I do think that leaves a lot of doors open for like extra problems. And then if there are issues, go through the steps, like talk to the teacher. If you have to move up the ladder, talk to the principal.
And you don't have to wait weeks to take these steps. I think that's something important if people are out there searching for resources or going through this with their child. I am not saying email your teacher and then wait 3 weeks and see if there's any change. If you email the teacher and then within the next week your student is still experiencing the same things, well, then it's time to email the teacher and the principal and say, I've reached out to Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, and we have still been experiencing similar issues. And I would start with how your student is feeling, or how it's impacting your student, instead of talking about other students, because I know in schools, staff often get defensive of other students because of privacy. We have a lot of laws with privacy we have to follow. They are minors, and so we do have to protect the kids all the way through senior year in high school. A lot of kids are minors through part of their senior year, so just protecting their privacy too, I think, becomes a priority, and that's very frustrating for a lot of people because it's not like a courtroom proceeding. We don't come out and say, these are the steps that are being taken, but I think if your school district is committing to that you can continue to check them and continue to say, if your student still has the poor experiences, definitely saying things to them to try and continually get your student's support or change your student's situation. I know that it's extreme, but I know people have moved schools or changed where they live even, and that sounds so extreme even to me, but also I think that if that's what's right for your children...
Hopefully within your means, because obviously...
Yeah, if it's outside your means...
It's not always.
Right, that's understandable, but even
Which
I know like in our community there's school of choice options. I don't know about all communities, of course, but I know locally there's school of choice, so you could change your school district without even changing your housing, and I think there's just a lot of options that if you feel it's that severe and you've contacted everybody you can and you feel like you've done what's best for your child, I do think that that's an option too, and it might not feel like the best option, but sometimes a fresh start is what's best for everyone, and who knows, it could really positively impact your child. I have seen that also, so just really look into all your options if that's something that you're experiencing, but hold your school accountable and definitely talk to your kids.
Advocate for yourself, advocate for your children, for sure. All right, I think that is going to end the discussion. It was very insightful, I feel. Maybe I'll have you on again in the future if it applies. All right. That's going to be all for today's episode. I hope that wherever you are happy, you're healthy, you're well. And until next time, I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.